You've scrolled past the stories. A stranger holding an oversized check. A number too big to mean anything. A headline you forget by the next post. You never picture yourself in it, because nobody does. Right up until the register at Halloran's Hardware won't take your debit card for a $9 bag of deck screws, and you're standing there patting your pockets for cash you don't have. That's when you find it. A folded ticket wedged behind your license, bought 11 days ago on a Friday you barely remember, back when your transmission was making a sound you were still pretending not to hear. The numbers on the ticket start matching the numbers on your phone. Winning the jackpot in secret. First number, then the second. You tell yourself it's nothing, the kind of near miss everyone has once and forgets by dinner. Then the third number lands and your thumb stops moving over the screen. Behind the counter, a kid named Julio is bagging someone's paint cans, whistling something off-key. You don't hear him anymore. Fourth number, fifth. Your pulse is doing something you don't have a name for, somewhere between panic and a feeling too large to be joy yet. Sixth number, all six. You don't gasp, you don't say a word. You just stand there under the fluorescent lights of a hardware store, holding a piece of paper worth more than every home on your cul-de-sac combined, while Julio asks the next customer if they found everything okay. You fold the ticket twice and put it in your jacket's inside pocket, the one with the zipper you never use. Something older than logic is already making decisions for you. Not your spouse, not your brother, not Julio 2 feet away, still whistling. You walk out past the deck screws you never bought. You sit in your truck in the parking lot with the engine off, hands on the wheel, and do the math badly, the way people do math when their hands are shaking. The sign outside had said $412 million. Would bought the ticket with change from a 20, mostly as a joke with your neighbor Desmond about both your roofs needing replacing. It wasn't a joke anymore. You drive home the long way, past the elementary school, past the church sign that still says, "Grace finds you even on a Wednesday," past your own driveway with the basketball hoop missing its net. Your porch light is on. Your husband's truck is exactly where it always is. You sit outside for 6 minutes before you go in, holding a folded piece of paper that could buy the entire block. And you understand, standing in your own kitchen with the same water stain on the ceiling, that this ticket isn't a windfall yet. It's a decision. The moment you say the number out loud, it stops being something you control. So you don't say it. Not tonight. You kiss your husband hello, like it's any other Tuesday, and you go looking, quietly, for what it actually takes to make sure the world never finds out you won. Choosing to disappear on paper. The law office is on the 4th floor of a converted bank building downtown, and the attorney, a measured, unhurried man named Arthur Kessling, doesn't ask why you're there. He's seen this exact posture before, someone sitting too straight, holding something folded too many times. First thing, he says, before you've even sat down, don't sign the back of that ticket. You look down at it, still folded in your bag, and realize you've nearly done exactly that in the truck. Signing it makes it yours, publicly and permanently, the instant anyone photographs it. Kessling slides a blank claim form across the desk instead. Near the bottom, small enough you'd have missed it, is a line. Prize winner elects to remain anonymous. Florida allows it, he explains, for wins over a certain threshold, which this clears by a wide margin. But the anonymity only holds if you also take the lump sum instead of the annuity. Annuity payments release a winner's name automatically after the first disbursement, no exceptions. Or your name in every paper in the state. You ask what the cash option actually comes to. He turns his monitor around. The jackpot sign said $412 million. The number next to cash value is $198.4 million. Your stomach does something complicated, watching a number lose more than half its size before you've spent a single dollar of it. That's before taxes, he adds, the way a doctor delivers news that's serious but survivable. He walks you through what comes next, an irrevocable trust, drafted this week, under a name that isn't yours. He suggests something forgettable. You land on the Cypress Hollow Trust, after the street you grew up on. The trust claims the prize. If anyone ever digs through the public record, they find the trust's name. They don't find yours. Who else knows, he asks, and it isn't small talk. He needs the exact number. Your husband, eventually. Not your mother. Not yet. Not Desmond, who you bought the joke ticket with, who absolutely never finds out. You tell Kessling, one person. He writes it down like it's a variable in an equation he's solved 100 times before, where every additional name is a point where the whole thing can come apart. He asks if you understand what you're agreeing to, not the paperwork, the shape of the next several years, no local news segment, no oversized check, not answering the door to relatives you haven't spoken to since a funeral in 2018. Just a signature, a trust, and a life that looks from the outside exactly like it did last Tuesday. You sign where he points. Walking out, you're not a lottery winner in any way the world can see. You're a person in a rain jacket, taking the stairs down to a parking garage, holding a folder instead of a check. Because the check, and everything it actually costs to receive it, is still 2 signatures and one enormous number away. What the IRS takes first. You're sitting in your truck in the school pickup line 11 days later, refreshing a banking app that hasn't moved all week when the number finally loads. $146,824,900. You don't move. A woman 2 cars up is buckling a kid into a booster seat and doesn't glance at you twice, because there's nothing to see. Just a person in a Ford F-150 staring at a phone, same as anyone checking a text. It's not $198.4 million. Kessling had warned you, and your new CPA, a precise, unflappable woman named Priscilla Ohuoba, had walked you through exactly why. The IRS withholds 24% automatically the moment the trust claims the prize. No negotiation, no delay, gone before the money is technically yours to spend it all. But Priscilla had also told you, in the same even voice she probably uses to deliver worse news to worse people, that 24% is only the deposit. A win this size lands you in the top federal bracket, 37%, and the rest comes due at filing. On $198.4 million, that's just under $73.4 million owed to the federal government, full stop, no matter how the timeline shakes out. Florida, at least, doesn't touch it. No state income tax, one of only a handful of states that can say that. Buy the same ticket 2 states north in Georgia, or up in New York, and you'd be watching another 6 to 10% vanish on top of the federal hit. Here, whatever the IRS doesn't take, you actually keep. You sit with the real number a long moment, $146.8 million, sitting quietly in an account, bearing the name of a street you haven't lived on in 20 years. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving something with your balance intact. The pickup line moves. You lock your phone, pull forward, and buckle your kid into the booster seat like nothing happened. Because as far as anyone in this line knows, nothing did. The boat dealer is 90 minutes down the coast in a town where nobody knows your name, which is exactly why you picked it. A soft-spoken broker named Emmett doesn't blink when you point at the 42-foot center console with the twin outboards, the one that had a 6-month wait list before a cancellation opened up. You pay by wire from an LLC he's never heard of, registered to an address he'll never visit. You don't bring it home that week. It sits at a marina slip 2 counties over, because a boat like that showing up in your driveway on a random Saturday is the kind of detail your husband, Malik, would ask about. And you don't have an answer yet that doesn't involve the word trust. The watch is different, that one you actually wear. A steel Nautilus, the kind that used to trade for double retail before the market cooled. You paid cash equivalent through the trust, and told Malik it was a gift to yourself for a work anniversary that doesn't technically exist. He believes you, because there's no reason not to. And you feel the first real weight of the lie, the moment he says it looks good on you. The truck comes next, registered to the LLC too, a blacked-out Raptor sitting in a rented storage unit outside town, driven maybe twice a month, always somewhere far enough from anyone who'd recognize it. None of it is the part that actually matters. That happens at midnight on a Thursday, at your kitchen table, after Malik's gone to bed. Priscilla walks you through the first real move over the phone that afternoon, in the same unhurried voice she uses for everything. A large share of the $146.8 million moved into a low-cost total market index fund, the same unglamorous instrument every honest advisor recommends and almost nobody actually buys. No wrapping paper, no broker nodding approvingly, just a number sliding from one account into thousands of companies you'll never think about individually again. It's the least exciting purchase you've made all month, and somehow the only one that doesn't need an explanation. The only one Malik could see on a shared statement without a single question. To anyone glancing at it, it just looks like saving. Everything else you own now comes with a story attached. That one doesn't. And it's the gap between the things you have to explain and the one thing you don't, that starts, without you noticing yet, to feel exactly like standing on a fault line. The text message that almost ends it. Malik's phone buzzes on the counter while he's in the shower, and you're not trying to see anything. You're just moving it to charge it, and the screen lights up with a Marina autopay confirmation notification stacked behind 3 others. Coastal Slip Rentals, monthly payment processed, $2,140. He walks out toweling off his hair and catches you holding his phone with an expression you can't smooth out fast enough. "What's that?" he says, and it isn't really a question. It's the sound of someone doing math they don't want the answer to. You set the phone down slowly, the way you'd set down something that might go off, and for 1 full second you run through every version of a lie that might survive this. A coworker's account, a mix-up. Every one of them collapses before you say it out loud, because he's already reaching for the phone himself. "Sit down," you say instead, and your voice comes out steadier than you feel. You don't tell him everything. Not the number, not the trust, not the 4th floor office downtown. You tell them the smallest true thing you can manage, that you won something, that you've been figuring out how to handle it carefully, that you were scared telling him would change something between you before you'd even worked out how to hold it yourself. How long? 9 months. You watch that number land on him the way the withholding number landed on you in the pickup line. Not disbelief exactly. Something heavier. The specific ache of realizing the person across the table has been carrying something enormous alone, on purpose, choosing every single day not to hand him any of it. You'd told yourself the silence was protecting him.
Sitting across from him now, it just looks like distance dressed up as care.
He asks the number eventually. You tell him. 412 million on the sign. 198.4 million in cash. 146.8 million actually yours, after the IRS took its share and Florida took nothing. He doesn't react to the size of it the way you expected. He reacts to the 9 months. "I've been splitting a pizza with you on Fridays," he says. Not quite a laugh. Not quite something else. While there was a boat sitting in a marina I've never seen. You don't defend it. There isn't a version of the defense that doesn't sound like what it was. You weighed him against the secret more than once, and the secret kept winning. Nobody throws anything. He goes to bed early. You sit alone at the kitchen table where the index fund confirmation once felt like the safest thing you owned, and you finally understand what Kessling meant about every name being a point of failure. You'd counted Malik as the safe one. You hadn't counted on the cost of making him wait. Building something that doesn't need explaining. 8 months after the kitchen table conversation, you're standing on a half-cleared lot on a quiet stretch of the Intracoastal, the kind of property that only shows up on a listing when someone with real money wants it gone quietly. The LLC bought it, not you, for $9.6 million. Malik's walking the property line, and for the first time since the Marina text, he looks like he's imagining a life instead of interrogating one. Priscilla walked you through the rest of the plan on a call last month, unhurried as always. The $146.8 million isn't just sitting in an index fund anymore. A meaningful share went into something duller and sturdier, a stake in a regional chain of self-storage facilities 2 counties over. The kind of asset that never makes headlines, never needs a website, just collects rent from people storing furniture between moves, whether the market's having a good week or not. There's a third piece too, one you asked Priscilla about specifically. A donor-advised fund under the trust, giving quietly to 2 things you actually care about. A trade school scholarship at the community college near where you grew up, and a hurricane relief fund for a town 2 counties south that got flattened last season. None of it has your name on it. None of it ever will unless you decide someday that it should. Your mother still doesn't know. Neither does Desmond. Still 2 doors down, still complaining about his roof. You still stop at Halloran sometimes out of habit, though never for a ticket. Not since the night the numbers matched. What you've built is real. The trust holds it. The storage facilities generate it. The index fund compounds it quietly in the background. And the house on the water will be framed by winter. On paper, it's exactly the outcome Kessling promised in that 4th floor office over a year ago. Protected, anonymous, growing. What it costs is something no spreadsheet tracks. It's the version of you that used to tell Malik everything, even the boring parts of a Tuesday, now filtering half of every sentence before it leaves your mouth. It's watching your mother worry over her property tax bill and saying nothing, because saying something means saying everything. It's Desmond joking about splitting a lottery ticket someday, and you laughing along like a person who still needs the dream of it. You stand on the unfinished lot while Malik talks about dock placement, and you realize the fortune isn't the hard part anymore. The hard part is smaller than that, and it doesn't have a dollar figure. It's the next moment, still somewhere ahead of you, when someone you love asks a simple question, and you have to decide one more time whether the truth is worth what it costs to say out loud. You know now what that small box on the claim form actually bought you. Not the watch, not the house on the water, the silence itself, chosen on purpose, over and over, every time someone asked what's new. The fortune sits exactly where you built it, quiet, untouchable. What doesn't sit as easily is the version of you that used to answer a simple question without checking it first. Notice it this week, the small moment where you almost say something true, and edit it instead. That's not paranoia. That's the actual price, the one no attorney puts in the paperwork. Malik still doesn't know about the truck and the storage unit. You tell yourself there's time, there's always a next conversation waiting, closer than you think, where the truth costs a little more the longer you hold it.